Oh, the severe weather from yesterday that postponed the second race of the 2010 IZOD IndyCar Series has finally moved through the area. You can see a lot of the water that is still pooled around this racetrack. And we have just gotten word we're going to have about a 10-minute delay because we're looking at the possibility, instead of declaring this a wet race, to allowing the drivers the choice of going to slicks, which would make the start even more interesting. As you can see, the cars are on the grid, and we are going to get this race in today here in St. Petersburg. That's the view from high above, and some of those puddles, well, actually look like lakes, are not supposed to be there, but believe me, it's a lot better than it was. At one point, a lot of this track was literally underwater. There's some of the standing water issues that we still have. That's in the turn 4 and 5 area, but it is drying very quickly, and what we're looking at is a 10-minute delay, and you can see the safety team out there as they are going to try and get this to a dry condition so that everybody can start on slicks. Along with Scott Goodyear, Marty Reed, glad that you're with us. Even though it is a Monday and we're a day late, we're finally going to get this race in. And if you were a driver, would you have rather just said, let's start it wet and let us dry it out and then go?
Well, I mean, a couple of minutes ago, the track was certainly wet, but the wind that we have right now, the corners are drying out quite quickly. We've got the best drivers in the world here right now, so they're looking at what we're seeing, and they're saying to their team owners, you know something, I'd rather be on slicks because I know after 5 or 6 laps, I'm going to come in and change to slicks anyways. For the talented drivers, absolutely. For the guys that are maybe a little bit questionable in the wet, they're going to be sliding around a little bit. The first lap still is going to be very interesting.
Well, and then the thing to remember also, too, is that if we start on wets, then the red and black rule goes out the window. For more, let's get caught up with Rick DeBrule.
The tire strategy is going to be critical today, and obviously in most races you really worry about two particular types of tires. You got the black sidewall tires, these guys right here. Those are good for the long haul. Then you've got the red sidewall tires. These tires are good for a short burst of speed. The rules say that you must use a brand new set. It's got to be a brand new set, and you must use them for at least 2 green flag laps. But the other set of tires that's coming into play is these right here, the wets. The question is, will this be declared a wet race to start? We don't know the answer to that just yet. That's the strategy that's going to have to play out. If they declare it a wet race, then those rules about the red sidewall tires I was telling you about, those are going to go back out the window. So the question comes down to, will it be starting as a wet race or a dry race? And once again, it's easy to know what the tires do. Figuring out the strategy and when to use them, that's when it gets complicated. Vince?
While the strategy may be something that teams are still discussing, the favorites role, well, that was settled earlier in the weekend. Yes, it may be Monday, but one thing has never changed. Team Penske is still the team to beat here at St. Petersburg. This team has won 3 of the last 4 races here at St. Pete. Helio Castroneves has won here twice before. In fact, when Castroneves won here in 2007, he led 95 of the 100 laps. Ryan Briscoe won here last year. Now, Briscoe picked the wrong tire for qualifying, so he'll start deeper in the field, but everyone knows he has been fast throughout the course of the weekend and will be making his way toward the front. And the third Penske driver, Will Power, he is full-time with this team now. He won the season opener at Brazil. He'll start from the pole today. And Jamie Little, when you ask up and down pit lane, who's the guy to beat? Everyone has agreed it's Will Power.
Absolutely, and one of those drivers saying the exact same thing, Tony Kanaan. But Tony Kanaan could be one of those guys to break up that Penske celebration they've been having all weekend long. After a lackluster 2009, he's really been on top of his game this weekend. He's been the strong point for Andretti Autosport, qualified on the front row. But his teammate, Danica Patrick, not faring so well. She's been at the bottom of the speed charts. She qualified in the back in 21st. Now, on top of that, she's working with a new race strategist in Tom Anderson. Now, he told me on Saturday he doesn't know Danica well enough to actually help her. So the two have a lot of adjusting to do. And on top of that, they've got to mix up their strategy today to get her to the front early. Marty?
All right, thank you, Jamie. Let's talk a little bit more about track conditions, because if you're a race fan, you know, anytime we get rain, it washes all that rubber away.
It really does, and it brings up all the oils and everything out of the racetrack itself. Remember, this is a city street course here that we're running on, so it's going to have a lot more in the pavement than we would generally see actually on a natural terrain road course. So I think for the first few laps here, even though it may be dry, it's going to be very slick. It's going to be what we call a green racetrack. It's almost going to be like coming here first thing on Friday morning when the course course was just put up and the cars were on there for the very first time. So for me, it's a 50-50 bet, but I think I would probably start off on the wets just to see where it goes, but you have to be back in and get on those dries as soon as it starts to dry out. Otherwise, your lap times are going to fail for that.
Well, the other thing that's going to be interesting is turn number 1. Remember, that is on a runway, an active airport runway, and there's a lot of paint down there. When that paint is wet, it's even more slick than ever before. Stay with us. We're coming back. ESPN's coverage of the IZOD IndyCar Series at St. Petersburg is presented by IZOD, the official apparel sponsor of the IZOD IndyCar Series, available at Macy's. And Honda, the engine supplier for the IZOD IndyCar Series. Well, the birds are loving all the water and the little worms and everything else that's brought up because it has been just torrential the last 12 to 14 hours, but the rain has moved through and the track is drying out, and that's why they went to a 10-minute delay just moments before we came on air, and they're waiting to see if they can get this into a typical traditional type start where the teams can go with black or red combinations. We'll keep you posted on that. This can be a bear of a track when it's dry, let alone when it's wet. You want some examples? Well, let's give you one. How about Dario Franchitti? He he had real problems the first day of practice.
Well, in this course, you have to attack it if you want to get the lap times out of the car, but any small mistake, as we're going to see here as we ride on board with Dario Franchitti, he turns in, just makes a small mistake, goes into the barrier. Watch his hands. He knows he made a mistake. The frustration, a champion shouldn't do that.
And he is going to be starting 13th. He was playing catch-up the rest of the weekend. First time in 15 races he is not in the top 6 on a road or street course. Let's talk about this 1.8-mile layout and give you an idea.
Hey, Marty, we talked about how bumpy it is here because it is a street course. It's not a natural terrain course, so you're going on the city streets. You're dealing with the bumps, the manhole covers, the concrete patches that are here, and as you can see in this course, it's very tight. That turn 1 situation we're going to watch for on the start. It's going to become very slick. You talk about it being here on the runway. Watch for action there. It's almost single file, 4 through 9 in that back section. Again, very treacherous here, especially in the rain with the wetness conditions. Trees overhang that area. 13 and 14, we've seen a lot of spin-offs here in the last couple of days, so watch for that area too. It was very wet. We talked about a green racetrack. That's what's going to be. The run down here from lap 1 onwards into turn 1, great place to pass, and we'll look for a lot of drafting and pushing around in that turn there.
And that is the most of the St. Petersburg area we have seen since yesterday. It was just unbelievable. I can't remember the last time I was involved where a road or a street course was actually postponed for a full day because of weather. Usually we've been able to work it in somehow, some way.
And I think we have to really make sure that people understand that usually you can run on a course that's wet, but when you have standing water, race cars will hydroplane just like your road car. It becomes very dangerous, especially with walls on both sides.
Especially also when we had about 300 lightning strikes all around the area as well. Hey, how about if we talk to one of the legends of the sport as we wait for this final call to get the race started? Mario Andretti is with Rick DeBrule.
And let's talk about the tire situation. Obviously, it's race control that's going to make the decision as to whether they start on wet or dry. And we understand now it's going to be a dry start. But let's talk to Mario Andretti about if you were a driver and there's some puddles out there to deal with, it's slightly wet. As a driver, would you rather start on wets or would you rather start on dries?
Well, obviously, I think you'd rather start on dries and try to make it through because, you're eliminating a pit stop, because it's a big penalty here when you talk about not just a stop, entering and exiting. So right now, the way conditions are, I mean, it's going to be a tough call for everybody, and it's not a black and white call. You could be really, really right or really, really wrong.
And once again, the race control just a moment ago declared it a dry race, so obviously that's out of the driver's hands. Now, we've talked about in the past the fact that you've made these decisions before, and it's never black or white. It's a lot of grays, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong.
Yeah, but Rick, if they declare a dry race, that means you have a choice. You can go out on wets or dries. If they declare a wet race, you must be wet no matter what. So now that's where the decision of the teams, will make the difference. And it could be actually the decision of the race right now.
All right, Mario Andretti, a guy who's made that decision more than a few times, sitting watching to wait and see what happens.
And you can see some of the teams putting on the red alternate tires, including our pole sitter, Will Power. When we come back, we'll be getting ready to go green here at St. Petersburg. Back here at St. Petersburg, and look at the grandstands. A tip of the hat to the crowd here in St. Pete. A lot of those folks obviously are, well, don't get too close. We don't want to get them